Hello everyone, I'm Merles1997, and welcome to my attempt at a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokémon Sword. Before we get started, I just want to go over and explain some stuff. Such as, first of all, what is this goofy thing known as a Nuzlocke? Well, a Nuzlocke is a set of rules in a Pokemon game to make the game increasingly challenging. The general rules for a Nuzlocke goes as follows. 1. Any Pokemon that faints must be either released or permanently stored in your PC or box, and can no longer be used in the duration of the game. 2. Only the first Pokemon encountered on a route may be caught and used. After that, that route is no longer usable to get any additional miles. 3. All caught Pokemon must be nicknamed. This is so that the player forms an attachment with the Pokemon, so that when the Pokemon reaches its inevitable end, it hurts all the more and you're just really sad. If those rules sound tricky, well, those rules are for Nancy's, because we're also doing the hardcore Nuzlocke rule set, which also adds the rules of players cannot use items in battle, as well as that the player must restrict the Pokemon's level to a level cap, such as that of the next gym leader or champion, elite four, etc. Pokemon that overlevel level cap before the battle begins can no longer be used until they hit the next cap. But as well, this is also a Wonderlocke. Wonderlocks are Nuzlockes in which any Pokemon that is captured must be immediately Wonder Traded, or, through a feature of the game, randomly trade out to some other random person somewhere on planet Earth. For these Pokemon, I made a kind of secondary rule set, such as 1. The Pokemon must clearly not be hacked, 2. Must be within the level cap when it is received, and 3. Must be nameable, or have a name that is of the English language, because, as an example, I don't want to get, let's say, a Pikachu, but it's in Chinese characters, and I can't name it, and I'll just be calling it Chinese Pikachu the whole time. But, other than that, that should be the rules, and there's one little caveat to make this a little extra spicy. I also decided not to use this game's extra gimmick feature of Dynamaxing, so this run also has no Dynamax at all whatsoever. So, with that, let's see how I do, and may the gods have RNG in my favor. As I step outside to the morning Galar sun, I go to meet up with my friend Hop. Hop and I are preparing to go on our Pokemon adventure as we leave our hometown of the Shire, Postwick, to the nearby town of Wedgehurst to meet up with Leon, the local champion of the region. Leon is also Hop's big brother who Hop really looks up to. Leon and his Charizard are both undefeated and extremely powerful, and as you can see, the populace loves him, so there should be some good adventures ahead with him. As a gift, Leon also gives Hop and I our first starter Pokemon, either Grookey the Grass type, Scorbunny the Fire type, or Sobble the Water type. Out of the three, I decided to go for Scorbunny, because in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter, because this Scorbunny will get traded away. Henceforth, why I give him the name of Not Starter the Starter. Though he won't be the true starter, hopefully his fiery energy will ignite the flames for me getting a powerful starter Pokemon. So let's see if mine and Scorbunny's brief friendship lights the way on this grand journey. As me and Scorbunny are getting well acquainted along with each other, Hop decides to go and take the Pokemon Grookey as his starter Pokemon, while Sobble stays with Leon. After this brief introduction and meeting, Hop and I decide to have our first battle, in which we kind of just stand there, bashing each other back and forth like a couple of Rock'em Sock'em robots. As Not Starter the Scorbunny easily dispatches Hop's Wooloo with a couple of tackles, and Hop's Grookey with a couple of well-placed embers. After the battle, Hop and I head back toward where my house is, where we notice the fence to an area known as the Slumbering World has been opened by one of the local Wooloo, who has appeared to have gotten lost. In a heroic action, Hop and I both decide to head into the Weald to go try and save the poor little sheep. The World is a very interesting area in the game. Very foggy, kind of a mystical forest kind of vibe. I think it's pretty interesting in my opinion. But as we head through the Weald, the fog gets increasingly thick and dense as we run into a Dark Souls reference, or the Pokemon known as Zacian. Little to our knowledge, so we didn't know that we were to a legendary Pokemon at the time. As we try to engage the legendary Zacian in battle, none of our attacks seem to be doing anything to it, as the wolf keeps howling and howling, causing the fog to become increasingly thicker and thicker. Eventually, Hop and I lose ourselves in the fog, losing the Pokemon, as well as blacking out in the process. Thankfully, though, Leon finds us, as well as the lost little Wooloo in the fog, and fortunately all of us make it out okay in the end. Getting back from the world, I head home to wish my mom farewell before I leave on my grand journey, as on Route 1, I go and catch a Rookie D, my first piece of trade fodder. Unfortunately, trading won't be activated until I get to the wild area, which I'll talk about in a moment. But, as of now, I head back to Wedgehurst to go meet up with Sonia, who will be a steadfast ally along this grand and perilous journey. After that, I head down to Route 2 to catch a Squovit, which should make for another excellent trade fodder Pokemon once trading becomes available. And soon afterwards, I arrive at Professor Magnolia's house, who is Sonia's grandmother and the local professor of the region. At the house, Leon decides that he wants to endorse me and Hop for the upcoming gym challenge, so to prove our worth, Hop and I have another battle. During the battle, our little starter, not Star the starter, goes through Hop's team like a horror movie slasher villain, having little problems with his Wooloo, his Grookey, and Hop's very own Rookidee, securing me another victory over Hop. After the battle, Hop and I stumble upon a pair of wishing stars, which wishing stars are used to Dynamax your Pokemon, which for me is utterly useless because I am not doing that this run. So maybe I'll just keep it as keepsake or sell it at a pawn shop or something. I don't know. Keep it around as a little knick-knack or something. Before boarding the train to the wild area, I decided to go stop and get some fresh clothes to wear before heading out on my journey and taking on more of a Sinnoh look, because Diamond and Pearl will always live forever in my heart. Finally, after finishing what I like to call the game's tutorial section, I'm finally let loose on the wild area. For those of you who don't know, the wild area is a vast area of the game where you can get dozens of various species of wild Pokemon. However, for this run, I'll only be able to get a wild area Pokemon for every gym badge I get. So, one gym badge equals one Pokemon out of the wild area. Just to, not to give it just kind of for the route counter for the challenge's sake. Another great thing about entering the wild area is that it activates the game's Y-count feature, which means I can finally start getting some encounters for the run, and I can see what the true starter Pokemon of the run is. Hopefully that fiery energy I mentioned about will hopefully come into fruition here. After trading around for a bit, I finally get my first viable Pokemon, a Yamper. Yamper would be a pretty good Pokemon to get in my opinion, because of its Nuzzle attack, which allows it to paralyze Pokemon, allowing them for easier captures down the line. It wasn't anything very amazing, but hey, I still think Score Buddy's Fiery Energy did a pretty good job. I decided to name the Yamper Sonia, after, well, the character Sonia has her Yamper of her own, but this Yamper is spelled Sonia with a J for that extra flair, because she's special. After trading around a bit more, I get my next encounter, a Beldum, which is a little more impressive than a Yamper, because hopefully if this Beldum sticks around for a while, it will become a mighty Metagross, which Metagross is a very powerful pseudo-legendary Pokemon that hits incredibly hard. So hopefully I can keep this little guy alive long enough so he can fill to his full potential. I named the little guy Morgan. The one thing about this run that I was not expecting was on how heartbreaking it was to go through just getting encounters. As example with this Gibble, you can't tell if it's going to be a viable encounter until either, well, you see the name come up and it's in a foreign language, or B, if you check the Pokemon and see how some Pokemon have up in the upper corner a country ID. If that little ID is there, that means you can't change the name, and that's pretty much the kit that's saying, you can't have that Pokemon. So in this case, sorry, I'm not getting the Garchomp later on. After what seemed like an eternity of getting Pokemon that were either I can't change the name or level 100 shinies, I finally get a viable encounter in the form of this little Hoot Hoot. Hoot Hoot, again, good Pokemon, not too bad for early flying type. I decided to name her Elizabeth. Hopefully she will be another excellent member of the new team. Seeing that Sonia's level is very close to level up, I decided to employ some clever tricks to try to get a couple extra encounters before heading to the champion ceremony of Motostoke. First, I head to Wedgehurst Station to do battle with the Galarian Slowpoke to get an encounter from there, while afterwards from that, I head back into Motostoke to go fishing off the dock to get an encounter from Motostoke. Hopefully these other two encounters will provide a little extra support, as I probably won't be able to use Sonia for a while due to her being so close to level cap. Unfortunately, my efforts to do this are kind of in vain, as both Pokemon I get are less than stellar. First, I get a Caterpie named Aaron, but unfortunately for him, he's level 19 and pretty much at level cap, so I can't use him. And second, my second Pokemon I get is a male Combee. Oh great. The best Pokemon ever that can evolve if it were female. This Combee, I just call him Bob because, he's Bob. He's just disappointing. After doing a little bit of grinding, I go and take care of some of the local Team Yell grunts, more on them later, as well as go say hi to everybody's favorite Ball Guy, who is, in my opinion, the real MVP of this game. We all love Ball Guy, and Ball Guy loves us too. Heading into the Gym Challenge opening ceremony, we meet our rogues gallery of gym leaders for the run, featuring Farmer Brown, Rule 34 Bait, an old samurai, setup fodder, the Queen, Captain Dadbod, and too much TikTok. One of the gym leaders, the 7th one named Pierce, he's apparently too cool for this kind of stuff. The one thing I do like about these games is the grand scale of the Galar Gym Challenge compared to normal gym challenges from previous games. They just seem they're on much more of a grander scale, as if it's some massive event for everybody to bear witness to besides a smaller little local gym battle. It seems, you know, it's like going to the Super Bowl or something. Before setting off the turf field to face the first gym leader, Hop wants to have another battle, but it goes just about as well as you'd expect, with Elizabeth taking out his Woola with a couple of echoed voices, Bob takes out Grookey with a couple of bug bites, and Sonya taking out his Rookie D with a couple of nuzzles. You'd think by now Hop would learn that, yeah, he is no match for me at this point. He needs to think of changing up his strategy, I think. After heading down Route 3 into Galar Mine, I catch 2 more Pokemon and get a couple more counters. The first one being a Litwick, who I named Trix, which is a fitting name for the little ghost-type candle, and the second one being a small little Timple, who I named Timmy, because Timmy the Timple. How wholesome is that? Hopefully nothing horrible or tragic will happen to this little guy. Heading into Galar Mine, I come across another gym challenger named Bede. Knowing that Bede mostly uses psychic types, I decide to lead this battle with Bob to do some damage with some bug bites. His Solosis goes down pretty easy, and I think for a second I might need to switch into Elizabeth for his Gothorita, but I figure that Bob can probably outspeed it and it goes well. As such, staying with Bob lands a pretty good Gothorita, but gets a pretty nasty side beam in return, but Bob retaliates with another bug bite. Ha, to think that this little Combi I thought was trash, it's actually pulling his weight for now. Good on Bob. Has to be good for something. At his last Pokemon Hatena, I should have Sonya to first land a Nuzzle to get a paralysis to make sure that I outspeed with my following attacks. I follow up with 2 bites, taking out the Hatena, ending my first battle with Bede. If there's one thing which I think is the theme of this run, it's hubris. Just as hubris was Bede's downfall in this battle, hubris will also be mine later on in the run. Heading on to Route 3, I catch another Pokemon, which means another trade in his order. After trading around for a bit, I actually managed to get a Audino. The Audino I eventually named Bara, which I'm pretty happy to get the Audino, because Audino is a pretty solid support Pokemon. Before battling Milo, I go grab the Expert Belt, which increases super effective damage towards Pokemon, as well as say hi to everybody's favorite Fall Guy. Unfortunately, before going to battle Milo, I make a pretty big mistake. That mistake is that I accidentally forgot to go heal. Because I think I was either reading on my phone or something, I just wasn't paying attention, so my Pokemon are going into this battle handicapped, so that's going to be pretty interesting. Again, hubris makes bad things happen. As the battle begins, I lead with Elizabeth, while Milo leads with his Glossifer. I go for an Air Slash, which does pretty significant damage to Glossifer, while Glossifer retaliates with the Magical Leaf doing minor damage. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that poisoning Elizabeth does more damage. Then I go for a second Air Slash, which knocks out Milo's Glossifer. Unfortunately, the Pokemon I was worried about was Milo's ace, Eldegoss. The reason why I'm worried about this Eldegoss is because it has the ability to Dynamax. For those who don't know, Pokemon with the ability to Dynamax gain a massive amount of HP and access to max moves, which hits incredibly hard for 3 turns. I switched into Bob because knowing that he's probably going to go for a max Overgrowth and Bob's flying bug typing, he quad resisted, easily taking the hit with no problems at all. Staying with Bob, I go for a Bug Bite that does pitiful damage, but Eldegoss retaliates with a very hard-hitting Max Strike, banishing poor old Bob to the Shadow Realm. I then switched into Sonya to try and land a Nuzzle to get a paralysis on the monster, but before landing the Nuzzle, poor Sonya gets hit with a very hard Max Strike. Fortunately, it does land, getting the paralysis. However, now I'm forced to switch out due to Sonya taking too much damage in the process. I then decide to switch out Sonya into Trix. Hopefully Trix Fire type can cushion the blows of some of these grass type moves. As Trix does end up taking a Leafage that does not that much damage, and then both healing off the grassy terrain from Eldegoss's max Overgrowths. Trix takes another Leafage, not much damage, while Trix retaliates with a Confuse Ray, leaving the Eldegoss to now deal with paralysis and confusion. Hopefully in the battle this helps out a little bit. I then decide to go for an Ember on the Eldegoss, as the Eldegoss breaks through confusion and lands a hard-hitting Magical Leaf, while in turn Trix gets a critical hit Ember, but that doesn't do too much damage. Eldegoss then hits itself with Confusion while I get another Ember with Tricks, but I decided to switch into Morgan thinking with the Steel type it could take some damage pretty easily here. Upon the switch, Eldegoss breaks out of Confusion but is fortunately paralyzed as Morgan lands a very light tackle while taking a light leapage in turn. I go for another tackle which nibbles some more health, but Morgan takes a hard magical leap this time. So I decided this time to try and end the battle decisively to switch into Elizabeth despite her being poisoned and low health. On the switch, she takes a light leafage and some more poison damage. I go for an ace, hoping for a hard hit, which connects, taking out the meddlesome Eldegoss and winning me the 3rd gym badge. Unfortunately, we did lose Bob, but hopefully, well actually knowingly, his sacrifice was not in vain on the long road ahead. Also, as an added bonus, for her bravery and valor, Elizabeth evolves into a nefarious Noctowl, which is, for this early game, a pretty decent flying-type Pokemon. Speaking of flying-type Pokemon, from my wild area encounter, I traded off whatever I caught there, I think it was a Mincino, and got a Rookie D in return. I'm actually pretty happy to get this, because down the line, Corviknight is a very good Pokemon as well. However, from Route 5, I didn't get anything too great. I just got a Skwovet, who I named Thorvald, who's just going to chill in the box most of the time. But back to the Rookie D, I named this little girl Landra, and down the line, she is going to be a valued member of the team. Crossing the Route 5 bridge, I run into Hop again, which he wants to battle again, so you've seen this song and dance routine before. Against this Wooloo, I sent out Tricks this time, though, because Wooloo's normal type attacks can't touch Tricks, while Tricks' Embers do more damage to Wooloo because of its Fluffy ability, making Tricks a perfect counter for Wooloo, which as such, Tricks easily takes care of the little sheep with a couple of well-placed Embers from Tricks, taking out Hop's first Pokemon of the battle. You'd think by now Hop would realize that I am the superior trainer, but hey, you know the definition of sanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Anyways, Hop's Rookie D now evolved into Corvisquire, lands a critical hit, peck on Tricks for not that much damage, while Tricks replies in turns with an Ember. The following turn, Corvisquire goes for Leer, as Tricks lands another Ember that does a decent amount of damage. At this point, I decide to switch into my flying type of my own, Elizabeth, ready for her first major battle debut. On the switch, Elizabeth takes a very light pluck and fires back with a powerful Air Slash, taking out the Corvisquire in a battle of aerial superiority, taking out Hop's second Pokemon. Hop still thinks he stands a chance in this battle, thinking that all his Pokemon are an ace. However, his final Pokemon, his Grookey, now evolved into Thwackey, really doesn't stand a chance against a powerful flying type such as Noctowl, who easily dispatches the ape with one powerful Air Slash, giving me another victory over Hop. Oh, poor Hop. I don't think he'll ever learn this lesson. It's not like down the line he'll get his revenge or anything like that. Oh well. Heading to Holberry, I encounter the chairman and his assistant Olena. Well, the chairman is in a very interesting set of clothes. Nice short shorts, my dude. As I head to the docks to go catch another encounter, because the Holberry docks got its own separate encounter zone, the experience from that encounter is actually enough experience to allow Morgan to evolve into its second form, a Mighty Matang. At least now Morgan should be a little bit more helpful in combat rather than smashing into things by using repeated tackles. One step closer to Metagross. Heading back from the dock, doing some trading around for a viable encounter. I honestly kind of want to keep the Nidoran that's being sent away right now, but instead, the first viable encounter I got was actually this Pinsir, who I end up naming Cletus. Pinsir is a monster attack stat, so he's a hit like a frickin' freight train. Heading into the second gym battle against Nessa, this battle goes a lot better than the battle with Milo because this time I actually, have a plan and don't walk into the battle like a frickin' doofus. The plan of action for this battle is a good old-fashioned Swords Dance sweep. So I start setting up one Swords Dance with Cletus while her Goldeen mimics with an Utility of her own. After a second Swords Dance, Cletus gets hit with a critical hit Water Pulse, which fortunately doesn't get a Confusion. I go for a third Swords Dance, but this time Cletus gets hit and confused. Fortunately, I gave him a Persian Bear expecting a Confusion here, making sure he wasn't confused when the sweep begins. Speaking of which, now that he's all powered up, all I have to do is just dodge one more Confusion, and now it's Storm Dance City, as Cletus hits her first Goldeen with a Storm Throw, as her Aracuda comes up. The beautiful thing about the attack Storm Throw is that it always results in a crit, so even after taking this light little Aqua Jet, another Storm Throw is going to be a guaranteed +6 critical hit, instantly destroying the poor little Aracuda. As Nessa sends in her ace, Dreadnought, I've actually perfectly planned for this, as Cletus's +6 Storm Throws are super effective against Dreadnought's secondary rock typing, making sure that this giant tortoise has no chance, as it gets absolutely bodied by another Storm Throw. Oh, Cletus, this is going to be the beginning of a beautiful friendship, I think, as Cletus's ferocity has just secured me the second gym badge. Rip and tear until it is done, buddy. As an added bonus, Timmy evolves from a Timpole into a Palpitoad, and Sonia evolves from a Yamper into a Boltoon. More evolutions are always welcome. For my encounter in Galar Mine number 2, I end up trading off and getting a Choodle in return named Phil. I do like the increased defense nature on him, but that decreased attack stat has me a little nervous. Hopefully in the future that stat does not come back to haunt me. Heading back into Galar Mine number 2, I run into Bede again and wants to have another battle. Unknowing to Bede, Cletus has him and his team for 3 minutes. 3 minutes of playtime. As Cletus just goes through his team one by one-shotting them with bug bites. Again, this is the reason why I made that Doom reference earlier. Because Cletus, he's just the Doom Slayer of Pokemon right now. Just having no mercy whatsoever. Oh, Cletus, again. Beautiful friendship. I freaking love this man right now. The funny thing is that, even unedited, the battle is actually about 3 minutes long, which is kind of ironic with that joke earlier. Oh well, another Bede battle down the drain. After a little bit of grinding, Phil evolves into a Dreadnought of my own, as well as Landra evolves into a Corvisquat of my own. Again, more evolutions. Always a welcome thing around here. I do get a couple more encounters though. For my encounter up from the wild area after getting the water badge, I get a Pancham, who I end up naming Clara. Hopefully if I get another dark type from Wonder Trading, I can actually evolve this little girl into a Pangoro. The other Pokemon I got from the Motostoke outskirts is a male Salandit, who I end up naming Steve. Steve here probably won't be doing too much because again it's a male Salandit, which is just about as useful as a male Combee. It's good if it can evolve, but unfortunately only the female version of the species evolves. Big sad energy right here. Heading back to the Budu Inn to rest up before battling Kabu, I run into Marnie, another gym challenger. Remember how I mentioned Team Yell? Well, Team Yell are a group of, they're basically football hooligans who root for Marnie, trying to stop people from completing the challenge, to Marnie's own dismay, who wants the whole contest to be a fair game. However, she wants to battle, so I'm gonna give her one. I decide to lead out with Morgan, while Marnie leads out with her Krogunk. This should be an interesting battle. I decide to go for a Confusion first, but Marnie has a Sucker Punch who gets priority over me. However, Morgan's Confusion fires back hard, instantly knocking out the little toxic frog, taking the Krogunk out of the battle. Score 1 for me. Marnie then sends out her second Pokemon, Scraggy. I decide to switch out here, but I'm kind of having a little trouble deciding what I want to do here, but I eventually settle on switching into Cletus, thinking that he could take out the Scraggy with a hard-hitting attack. As Cletus comes in, all that happens is that he just hit by a pretty low-damaging low kick, as I decide to set up Sword Stance with Cletus, so Cletus can go do his things, ripping and tearing until it is done. The Scraggy responds just by sending off a light headbutt, so in turn, I have Cletus use a Storm Throw, throwing Scraggy across the room, instantly one-shotting with a one-shot critical hit. Good times, Cletus. Good times. As of now, the battle is going pretty well, but it's with her ace, or Peko, this generation's Pikachu clone, is where things start to go a little bit awry. As I've had Cletus go for a Storm Throw, try to one-shot the little thing, but unfortunately Morpeko's bite gets a flinch on Cletus, having him unable to get the hit in. With Cletus slow and me thinking that he's in critical hit range, I'm forced to switch out and setting in Timmy, expecting a Spark. However, Morpeko lands a pretty hard-hitting bite, which takes Timmy's health to about 2/3. I go for Mudshot for some damage, but Morpeko lands a critical hit bite, nearly killing Timmy, as Timmy's Mudshot does some decent damage in return, while also slowing down Morpeko as well. Not wanting to get Timmy killed, I decide to switch out to another Pokemon. I decide to go on Sonia this time to see if I can go for a strong dodge boosted bite. I know due to its dark typing it won't do a lot, but hopefully it does better than nothing, as Sonia comes in and takes a light quick attack. Sonia goes for her bite, but as I expected, I mean, it didn't do that much, but enough, as Morpeko lands a hard-hitting bite on Sonia, forcing me to take her out of the battle as well. I decide to switch into Morgan. On the switch, Morpeko doesn't attack, but unfortunately, Marnie heals Morpeko, making all this effort right now in the battle worth nothing. I decide to go for a Flash Cannon on Morgan, seeing it's Morgan's hardest hitting attack, as Morgan hit with a very hard-hitting bite, taking her to the red, but unfortunately her Oran Berry raises her up a little bit, as the Flash Cannon goes up doing less than stellar damage. With Morgan in the red, I realize I'm starting to run out of options, having to take him out of the battle as well. I decide to send in Cletus, risking the old critical hit. Fortunately, I'm not punished, as Cletus takes just a normal bite with no crits involved, as I send off a Storm Throw, one-shotting the little mouse, ending the Morpeko's reign of terror. I was actually getting a little nervous here, figuring I'd have to sacrifice something. Fortunately, I found my way through with no casualties to be had. Good battle, Marnie. After the battle with Marnie, I go begin Kabu's Gym Challenge, in which I catch one of the Pokemon there, and due to the fact that the Motostoke Stadium and the Motostoke Docks are two different encounter zones, this is technically a valid encounter, so I trade around for a bit and actually pulling a Magikarp. This little fish seems very unassuming right now, but Gyarados is honestly a kind of a broken Pokemon in my opinion, especially for Nuzlocke runs. Good stuff. Speaking of which, after a little bit of grinding, the Magikarp, who was named Olga, evolves into the mighty Gyarados. As the battle with Kabu begins, he leads with his Ninetales while I lead with Phil. My plan for the battle is to try to get a Rock Polish off of Phil so he's faster, following up with some hard-hitting attacks to one-shot his Pokemon. As his Ninetale leads with the Will-O-Wisp, landing a burn on Phil, burning him. Fortunately, I gave Phil a Ross Berry to counteract the burn as his Rock Polish speeds up Phil. As Phil goes for his Razor Shell, it unfortunately doesn't get the one-shot. Minus attack nature. Aw, crap. So as I go for another Razor Shell to finish off the Ninetales, it does its job, while Phil fortunately also avoids a Fire Spin. As Kabu begins sending his second Pokemon, an Arcanine. Unfortunately, this Arcanine's ability to Intimidate lowers Phil's attack stat, which that plus the minus nature doesn't hit the Arcanine either. Lowering its defense though, as Arcanine goes for agility, speeding it up, making it now faster than Phil. In hindsight, I probably should have switched out Phil to something else to take the burn that Phil has now, making his attack even worse. It's enough to kill the Arcanine, but now I'm a little unsure if we could take out his following Pokemon, a Centiskorch. I'm kinda hoping that Phil's Rock Tomb, which is quite effective against the Centiskorch, can kill it due to its Fire and Bug typing. As Centiskorch comes in, I decide to go ahead with the plan and have Phil use his Rock Tomb, as Kabu Gigantamaxes his Centiskorch. The difference between a Gigantamax and a Dynamax Pokemon is that a Gigantamax Pokemon also gains a unique form as well as access to unique moves depending on the Pokemon. As Phil uses his Rock Tomb, it does pretty pitiful damage, while Centiskorch fires back with a hard-hitting G-Max Flutterby that takes out half of Phil's health. With Phil now at half health and burned, I decide to switch into Elizabeth expecting another G-Max Flutterby coming. Unfortunately, the Dino, Kabu decides to use his signature move, G-Max Inferno, that acts as a Fire Spin, trapping the Pokemon that's out. Elizabeth gets hit hard, trapping the Pokemon as well as keeping it on low health. Had I knew it was going to go for the Sun Inferno, I would have sent out Tricks instead, because of its Flash Fire ability, it would have just ate the attack for no damage. As I have Elizabeth go for one final Defiant Air Slash, doing a decent amount of damage before being taken out by another Sun Inferno. Rest in peace, Elizabeth. You do deserve a good rest. Now with a safe switch in, I decide to send in Olga, whose Intimidate ability lowers the Centiskorch's attack stat, while also the Centiskorch's Dynamax, or Gigantamax I should say, running out, returning it to normal, lowering its HP. However, none of that really matters as Olga goes for an Expert Belt boosted Waterfall, instantly knocking out the Centiskorch and getting revenge for her fallen comrade. With that devastating strike, Olga has just given me victory over Kapu, as well as my third gym badge. I feel bad about losing Elizabeth. She was a good little flying type. Fortunately, though, I do have Landra in the back, and she will serve as a worthy successor to Elizabeth. After making my way to the newly unlocked northern section of the wild area, I arrive at the city of Hammerlock. The thing I like about Hammerlock is how its architecture is in this European medieval castle style. Good on the developers for giving it its own signature look. Unfortunately, the current gym here, led by Raihan, is the 8th gym, so I'll have to go around to some of the other surrounding towns to get those badges first before I stand a chance against him. While in the wild area, I catch a Pokemon and trade it away, getting a Stuffle in return. I end up naming the Stuffle Linda. Stuffle really isn't my favorite, but I heard Beware could be okay in certain situations. Maybe down the line she'll be useful for something. Heading into town, I bump into the chairman again, who is still in this very curious outfit. Man, this guy must really like his short shorts or something, I don't know. I also bump into Sonia, learning about a past Galarian Doomsday event known as the Darkest Day. Hopefully something like that doesn't happen again, unless, I mean, the only way that could happen again is if some absolute whack job falls off the frickin' boat and then just does something incredibly stupid. But what are the chances of that happening, huh? I also bump into Hop on the outskirts of the town, but for once he doesn't want to battle because he just got in a battle with Bede, and Bede whooped him pretty good. I'm starting to feel bad for Hop a little bit now. Poor guy. He just can't catch a break. Something kind of funny that happened while heading down Route 6 is that I ran into this trainer who had a Clefairy and a Clefable that both knew Metronome. After defeating the Clefairy came out and used Metronome, but used the move Fusion Bolt of all things, which, for those who don't know, is the unique move of the legendary Pokemon Zekrom. When I saw that, I did get a little nervous, but fortunately, Morgan actually tanked it pretty well and dispatched the Clefable shortly afterward. I just thought it was funny, out of all the moves it could pull out of Metronome, it pulls a legendary signature move. Absolutely nuts. After catching a Pokemon on Route 6, I head back to the Pokemon Center to start doing some wonder trading. After trading for a while, I send this totally legitimate Tapu Lele away, in turn, for a Vanillite. I've always made fun of these little ice cream cone Pokemon. Maybe I actually really don't know too much about them because I stopped playing Pokemon around Gen 5. And didn't pick up again till, well, Sword and Shield came out. Maybe I've underestimated them. I decided to name the little guy Ike. Running into Hop again and still on side, he's feeling better and decides to have another battle. However, again, this is Hop we're talking about here. And definition of insanity, again. Like, I don't even know if I should be showing this because Hop just gets destroyed again. As you can see here with Olga fighting Hop's new Cramorant, he just takes it out with a couple of Ice Fangs, and then that's that done and done. He then sends out his new Toxel, so in response, I send Morgan in to try to avoid a quite effective electric attack. Fortunately, Toxel just goes for a tearful look, and Morgan's Clear Body totally counters the move. I then go for a Metal Claw, only dealing pitiful damage to the Toxel, only getting paralyzed from my trouble after a retaliatory Nuzzle attack. I then decide to go for a Confusion, breaking through the paralysis, taking out the Toxel, having to tank another Nuzzle in return. 2 down, 2 to go. Again, I'm feeling bad for Hop right now, but he wanted a battle, so I mean, I'm just trying to, give him what he wants. Anyways, after sending out Silly Cobra, I respond by sending in Olga, who takes a light brutal swing on the way in. Afterwards, Olga does Olga things and immediately pounds the Silicobra in response with a hard-hitting waterfall, easily taking out the little sandy snake. All that's left for Hop is just his starter Pokemon Thwackey, and you'd think the grass type would be a threat against a water type. However, Olga, being part flying, does not take super damage from Thwacky's grass attacks, as well as it knows Ice Fangs, doing super effective damage to the Thwackey. As Thwackey just uses Screech, lowering Olga's defense, Olga's faster hits first with a secondary Ice Fang, taking out the Thwackey and ending my 5th battle with Hop. Well, hey, at least he tried. Heading into the next gym, I pay a visit to everybody's favorite ball guy, because again, ball guy, he is the GOAT, as we prepare to take on Bea. Now, the thing about Bea is that there is a reason why, earlier in the game, I called her setup fodder. The reason being is that Bea is very easy to set up against with the right moves and the right Pokemon, making her, honestly, one of the easiest gym leaders in the entire Pokemon franchise, to my knowledge. What I'm doing right now is using Charm to lower her lead Hitmontop's attack stat down to basically nil. Reason being is that the Hitmontop only has physical attacking moves, meaning that whatever comes out after Sonia goes back in basically will not take any damage whatsoever. After Sonia finishes lowering Hitmontop's attack, I Volt Switch out into Landra, so now Landra can easily start setting up Home Claws, boosting her own attack and accuracy. The accuracy is not really important, but it's the attack stat. Now that Landra can start boosting her attack up and up and up, eventually she can just sweep Bea's entire team. Henceforth, what I call Bea setup fodder. Alternatively, another strategy you can use is actually starting out with a Ghost type against Bea. The Hitmontop here has no attacks that can damage a Ghost type because they're all either fighting or normal moves. So if you have a Ghost type with Calm Mind, you can easily set up Calm Minds against this thing and sweep her entire team, albeit making sure the Ghost type's faster because I believe some of the Pokemon down the line have Dark type moves. Anyways, now that Landra's fully powered up, it's time to begin the sweep, as one Peck annihilates her Hitmontop and her Pangoro. All I know right now is that Landra is making Elizabeth proud, wherever she may be. As Bea sends in her very fancy-looking Surfetch'd, that Duck 2 also gets drilled down from big pecks from Landra. After that, Bea only has one Pokemon left, her Gigantamax Machamp. Fortunately, it's to be the same story goes. Even though this big lug looks menacing and scary, all we have to do is just hit this big boy with one hard peck, and he goes down like a ton of bricks. Landra fires off another Drill Peck, easily taking down the Machamp, securing me the 4th gym badge. Way to go, Landra. You did a fantastic job this time, as well as Sonya for doing some good support work. As a bonus, Landra hits level 38, meaning she evolves into a mighty Corviknight. Corviknight is such an awesome looking Pokemon. That evolution was definitely deserved, and she is going to fill in for Elizabeth's position very nicely now, especially with that steel typing. I love my steel types. Shortly after finishing the gym battle with Bea, I go outside and see Bede actually committing an act of vandalism, tearing down a priceless mural with Chairman Rose's copperage. As a result, I am sent to stop him, as well. It's pretty much the same thing that happened last time with Cletus sweeping his entire team. There's really not much new here, so I think I'm just going to fast forward through all the segment. It's just Bede getting his butt kicked again. After the battle, Bede's little rampage with the copperage causes the mural to collapse, revealing some statues of some very good-looking boys. Wonder if these puppers will play a role later on. After all of that nonsense, I head out to go get some new encounters, which both are actually pretty solid. My first one, which is from my Glimwood Tangle trade, I actually pull a Charmander. Sensing greatness in this little guy, I name him Alexander. While my second encounter I get afterwards is actually a score bunny who I name Roger. Unfortunately, I probably can't use all three of them due to, well, you know, I already have a decent fire type considering I have Trix, Alexander, and now Roger. So somebody is going to have to sit on the bench for a little bit, unfortunately. Pressing through the Glimwood Tangle, I head into the city of Balanlia to face the Fairy-type gym leader named Opal. Not much exciting happens during this battle. It's just Landra setting up with Homeclaws again, sweeping her entire team, due to the fact that her lead Weezing really can't touch Landra, giving her free reign to set up as long as she pleases. Again, Opal's one of those gym leaders that's considerably easy if you have the right Pokemon for the job. Plus, also, she asks various questions during the battle, which, if you get the correct answer, also gives your Pokemon free buffs. So after a period of setting up, Landra easily takes out her entire team with a couple of hard-hitting Steel Wings, securing me the 5th gym badge. I'm just glad that things are going a lot better since the little Milo debacle. It's not like things that are going really smoothly now will suddenly go horribly wrong, right? Heading across the Route 7 bridge, I run into Hop again where we have another battle. Again, I'm just gonna kind of skip through this because nothing really important happens here. It's just me absolutely wiping the floor with Hop again and him just being sad. Nothing new. Again, poor old Hop. Heading on to Route 8 as I try to get an encounter, I stumble across a Powdon. I decide I really don't feel like trying to wrangle this thing around, so I actually kind of just skip the encounter. I mean, my Pokemon are fine right now, so I think I can handle missing one encounter right now. Oh well. Maybe my wild area will go a little better. From Route 7, I trade around and eventually get a Nickit who I named Nathan, and from the wild area, I trade around and eventually get a Galarian Zigzagoon named Bandit. Both of them aren't really going to do too much, I think, but hey, at least I now have a Dark type I can use to evolve Clara into a Pangoro. Better than nothing, I guess. Still kind of sad about missing that Route 8 encounter, though. Preparing for the 6th gym battle, I get a couple of team upgrades, including evolving Clara into Pangoro and Timmy into a Seismitoad, as well as finally hitting the Flubbercup to finally evolve Trix into a Lampet, and then using a Dusk Stone found in Stow Inside into a mighty Chandelure. Even though Chandelure can't be used in the next gym due to being a Rock-type gym, down the line I'm sure she'll be very useful. While going through the gym trainers at the Rock Gym, I make a bit of a mistake. I didn't realize that this Sudowoodo with Sturdy also had the move Woodhammer, which is very bad news for Timmy, as Timmy is bludgeoned in the face with a Woodhammer, knocking out Timmy, as well as knocking out the Sudowoodo. Man, poor Timmy got taken out by a kamikaze Sudowoodo. That's also not very good because Timmy was kind of my plan for Gordy, so time to think up plan B. I decide to evolve Linda into a Beware, knowing that some of its fighting type moves could be helpful against Gordy's rock types, as I go challenge Captain Dadbot himself. Gordy starts out by sending on his Barbaracle, while I send out Phil. The original plan was to have Timmy set up a Rain Dance and then start using some hard-hitting liquidations to take out all his Pokemon. Well, unfortunately, due to Timmy's untimely demise, that plan is no longer an option. Like I said before, I haven't played a lot of the games since Gen 4, haven't picked the games up since, well, this generation a couple years ago. And not knowing about Shell Smash, I'm in for a rough time right now. As Gordy hits me with a very hard Razor Shell, as Phil hits back very lightly with another Smart Strike. I thought it'd do more, but apparently it didn't, as I decide to switch into Barra to try to set up a Reflect, to try to mitigate some of the damage. However, on the switch, Barra gets hit incredibly hard, so I try to switch again into Morgan, thinking he could take some damage due to his steel typing. However, he also gets clocked, nearly getting one-shotted, So now I have to switch again, this time into Linda. As Linda comes in, she also almost gets one-shot, as well as taking a very nasty defense drop. This is not good at all. I try to go for a hammer arm of the thing, but it outspeeds and takes out Linda. Well, I guess you can't spell Gordy without die, as I send in Sonya, thinking Sonya can outspeed due to her electric typing and high speed. However, Roberto still outspeeds Sonya, one-shotting her as well. Well, there goes my starter Pokemon. So then I send in Carol to try to do something, as right now I'm starting to panic and alarm bells going off at my head, thinking that, oh, am I about to get wiped right now? As Carol takes a very hard Razor Shell, but hitting with a Vital Throw, finally taking out the menacing Babaracle. Thank God that thing's finally gone, as Gordy sends in his second Pokemon, Stormjourner. As I decided to go with another Vital Throw, thinking that Carol can outspeed the Stony Titan, but alas, she's taken out by a hard-hitting Body Slam. Well, there goes half my team right now. As I decide to send in Phil to try and take the deal with Stormjourner, I go for a Waterfall, which connects and does good damage to Stormjourner, and thankfully all it does is set up a Stealth Rock. Going for another Waterfall, it hits hard enough to take out the Stormjourner, taking out two of Gordy's Pokemon, as Phil is pretty much holding the line all by himself. Hang in there, Phil. As Gordy sends in his third Pokemon, a Shuckle, knowing of Shuckle's pathetic attack stat and Phil's decent defense stat, I decide to set up a Rain Dance, increasing Phil's offensive capabilities. While the Shuckle just hits Phil with a very light Rock Tomb, although it does end up reducing his speed, as Phil hits back hard with a Waterfall, one-shotting the Shuckle. I'm starting to think that I actually managed to work my way out of this, as Gordy sends in his last Pokemon, a Colossal. Fortunately for me, Colossal is a Rock-Fire type, meaning Phil's Water-type attacks will do quite effective damage to it, so I'm really hoping for the one-shot right now. As Gordy Gigantamaxes his Colossal into Gigantamax Colossal. I'm really hoping for the one-shot right now. As Phil goes for his Waterfall, it hits hard and doesn't get the kill. Oh boy, that minus attack nature. That Colossal must be alive on what is 1 HP, as Phil goes down to a G-Max Mechanolith. Oh, Phil, you tried hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. Fortunately, Morgan can come out and finish off the giant lug with a Bullet Punch, narrowly securing victory for me and winning me the 6th gym badge. I honestly thought that I was going to wipe right here during this battle. I really think that if it wasn't for Morgan having Bullet Punch, I would have wiped right here, but thankfully, Morgan saves the day. Not out of the woods yet, Hop wants to have another battle, and things are going well in the battle as I'm handling his Pokemon, but also taking some damage in return. Such as, well, Chandelure taking care of his double, Pinsir handling his Snorlax, so on and so forth. I don't really run into trouble until he sends out his Pincurchin, where I make the grievous mistake of where I think that Heal Pulse, I can select who I heal the target with, because I didn't read the description. But unfortunately, it only heals the Pokemon in front of you besides the one using the ability. Meaning, I just healed Pincurchin for free, which, oh no. Unfortunately, this dumb action costs Bara dearly as she goes down to Pincurchin, and Hop finally getting a little bit of revenge. That one stung, because that one was entirely my fault for doing something stupid. Needing reinforcements from my previous encounter... Needing reinforcements from recent losses, I decided to get more encounters. From Route 9, I get a Wooloo from my trade, which is nothing special, but from my Wild Area trade, I get an Aron. I remember back in the day, the Aggron line used to be one of my favorite lines of Pokemon. I'm glad to use in this run. I decided to name her Alice. I also get some much needed upgrades to the team, evolving Morgan into Metagross, Alexander into Charizard, and Alice into Aggron. After that tragic loss, I think it's time to bring out the frickin' big guns. Heading towards Spike Month to face the 7th gym leader, Piers, I find that the town is blocked off by Team Yell Grunts. Fortunately, Marnie is outside and she knows a secret way inside the town. She is willing to let me in at the cost of defeating her in a battle, so naturally I am up to the challenge. This battle goes a lot better than the previous encounter with Marnie, with Pinsir taking out her Lilepard easily with just a single Storm Throw, as I switch into Morgan to try and take out her Toxicroak. Morgan unfortunately misses his first Zen Headbutt, so I switch to Cletus to avoid an oncoming Sucker Punch. After avoiding the Sucker Punch, I switch back to Morgan to avoid an oncoming Poison Jab. As Morgan now tanks the Sucker Punch, but this time lands its Zen Headbutt, knocking out Marnie's Toxicroak. I then decide to send in Alexander to act as a pivot, taking in whatever attack her Scrafty is going to throw out. After Scrafty lands its hit, I switch into Cletus to take a very light crunch. Cletus then does what Cletus does and Storm throws her Scrafty into oblivion. All that's left from Marnie is just her ace, Morpeko. All that the Morpeko does is just hit Cletus with a light spark, as Cletus retaliates with a very hard-hitting X-Scissor, winning me the battle. Thanks for the way in, Marnie. Heading into Spike Month, I go face down Marnie's older brother and the gym leader, Piers. Unfortunately for Piers, he doesn't know that Cletus has him for 3 minutes. 3 minutes of playtime. As Cletus goes around using Storm Throws and using X-Scissor on his entire team to his little heart's content. I'll gladly take an easy win after the massacre at the last gym battle. One thing about Piers is that he doesn't use Dynamax because he believes it's wrong. Way on you, Piers, to be a fair sport for me this run. After battling Piers, I go out to the wild area to catch a Pokemon to get my next trade encounter. I end up getting a Ninjask, but this little girl doesn't really do much of the run, just chills out in the box, to be honest. Although, before going into Raihan, the final gym, I do actually prepare Ike and evolve him into a Vanillux, as for him I have plans. Heading into the Raihan battle, you may know something different, that this is a double battle, as Raihan leads with Flygon and Gigalith, as I start out with Ike and Olga. My plan for this battle is to try to keep his last Pokemon, his Gigantamax Duraludon, isolated. So starting, I take out his Flygon with a 4x Super Perfect Ice Beam from Ike, while taking his Gigalith down to 1 HP with a Waterfall from Olga, but it will survive due to its Sturdy ability. I take a second to think about what my next course of action should be, and I decide to finish out the Gigalith with an Ice Beam while pounding Sandaconda with a Waterfall from Olga, taking out both Pokemon, leaving the oncoming Duraludon totally alone and exposed. However, it still is very dangerous. As Duraludon comes in, I'm not sure which Pokemon is going to target, knowing that whichever one gets hit probably won't survive, so I decide to try to hit it as hard as I can with both Pokemon before, well, one of them goes down. Ike hits pretty hard with an Ice Beam, but goes down to a hard retaliatory Max Steel Strike. Olga tries to counterattack with a Crunch, but that only does a fair amount of damage. Again, not knowing which Pokemon Duraludon is going to go for, I go for the same plan again, with Olga's Crunch doing minimal damage, and Olga getting smashed by a G-Max Rockfall, surviving on very little health. Fortunately though, Morgan comes in clutch and smashes the Steel Behemoth with a Hammer Arm, winning me the battle. Winning me the 8th and final gym badge, as well as access to the Galar Champion Cup. Before heading up to Winden to attend the Champion Cup, I decided to get my last 2 encounters. My first trade encounter up from Route 10 is actually an Eevee, allowing me to fill in any gaps in my team that I need. I named the small Eevee Ace. My second encounter, this time my last wild area encounter, ended up being a Galarian Ponyta. Not a bad encounter, especially at least now I have a Fairy type to work with. The Fairy types are actually pretty powerful Pokemon. I named the Ponyta Augustus, and after a little bit of grinding, I decided to evolve Eevee into a Jolteon using a Thunderstone, so I have some electric coverage, and I evolve Ponyta into Rapidash. Heading up to Winden, it's time for round 1 of the semifinals of the Galar Champion Cup. Now, one thing that you may notice is that the level cap around here gets kind of odd, because this endgame isn't like your typical Pokemon game, as this is more of a bit of a boss rush, instead of your traditional four Elite Four members, followed by a champion. Because of this, the levels get kind of squished together real hard, while you get a lot of XP, so I decided to have the level cap hit the first actual quote-unquote Elite Four member. Anyways, back to the battle. After scouting around trying to see what Marnie's going to do with her Liepard, I decided to take it out with a hard-hitting Thunderbolt from Ace. As she sends in her Scrafty, I decided to do the same thing, but unfortunately I don't get the one-shot. Thinking that Marnie is going to retaliate with a Crunch, I decided to send in Cletus to take the damage. Fortunately, all she does is just use a full restore, as Cletus easily one-shots the Scrafty, taking out her second Pokemon. 2 down, 3 to go. I am glad this battle is so far going well. I still kinda have PTSD from the Gordy fight, to be honest. Marnie then sends in her Toxicroak, which I decided to send Morgan to deal with, as Morgan easily one-shots it with 1 Zen Headbutt. Make that 2 to go. Marnie then sends in her former ace, Morpeko. In turn, I decided to send in Cletus, as those two can continue their little bit of a rivalry that's been going on for the entire run. As Cletus comes in, he is hit by a Torment from the little Morpeko, so knowing that I can't use the same move twice in a row now, I decided to set up a Swords Dance. The following turn, I fire off a Strength, one-shotting the tiny mouse once and for all. With Marnie's back now against the wall, she sends out her brand new ace, a Grimmsnarl, as she's about to Gigantamax into Gigantamax Grimmsnarl. So in anticipation of this, I send out Landra to try to tank any oncoming fairy moves that come in. However, Marnie decides to go for a Dark-type G-Max Snooze. So anticipating another Dark-type move, I decide to switch into Cletus, who can take that hit much better than Landra can. Cletus takes a tolerable but big hit upon switching in. I then decide that this Grimmsnarl is now definitely going to go for Fairy type move, so I decide to send in Alice. As Alice easily takes the oncoming GMAX Starfall and ending the Grimmsnarl's last turn of Dynamax. Now the great thing here is that Alice is pretty much a perfect counter for this Grimmsnarl, as none of its moves really do any damage to it, and any damage that's dealt is easily held off with Alice's leftovers. So after a little bit of back and forth, Alice lands one more hard-hitting Iron Head, taking out the Grimmsnarl, knocking Marnie out of the Champion Cup and having me move on to the next round. Well played, Marnie, you were a very amiable and honorable opponent. Heading into Hop, I want to try to set up a Dragon Dance sweep, so I lead with Olga against his double. Unfortunately, I do make a couple mistakes trying to set this up and end up not going for it. One mistake I made was that I thought that Corviknight had Charm for some reason, even though it doesn't, so I have to switch into Ace, having Ace take a free hit, as I finally start going for Charms. As I charm the double for a while, as it body slams and cotton guards me back. After a while, I decided I think it's fine to send Gyarados back in. However, this is where my second mistake is, as I forgot to give Gyarados the berry that removes paralysis. Which, as I'm setting up my dances, worst comes to worst, and Gyarados gets paralyzed. Well, there goes that plan. As the whole point for the sweep is just one-shot everything without them having a chance to retaliate against you. So I decided to set up a couple more dances just to make sure that Gyarados, who isn't taking much damage right now, can take out the double with no problem. And after a couple of waterfalls, the big burly sheep goes down as Hop sends in his second Pokemon, Pincurchin. Seeing that Hop wants to use an electrical attack, I send in Ace. Ace's Volt Absorb ability actually allows him to heal from electrical attacks, so thanks for the free heal, Hop. I then decide to send in Alice as the Pincurchin just sets up a curse. So after a couple of high horsepowers, Alice takes out the little spiky thundery boy. Now that was justice for Bar right there. Even though that was kind of my fault, but besides the point, justice nonetheless. As Hop sends out his third Pokemon, Snorlax. Contemplating the switch, I first decided to go for a Protect to get some extra healing on Alice. As Alice blocks the incoming Hammer Arm and gets a little bit of health from her leftovers, I send in Cletus, who takes a very light high horsepower on the way in. With Cletus now in, Cletus does Cletus things, and Storm throws the Snorlax across the room. Man, before this run, I was more of a Heracross kind of guy, but Pinsir, hey, Pinsir's proven his worth right now. With Hop setting in Corviknight, I decide to send in Alice to block an oncoming Drill Peck. Fortunately, though, he just goes for a Scary Face as Alice gets some more health from leftovers. The following turn, I decide to go for a Protect so Alice can get more health, as the Corviknight goes for a Steel Wing that does nothing due to the Protect. I then decide to switch into Ace, but I get hit by a Swagger on the way in, causing him to get confused. I then pivot back out to Alice to get rid of Ace's confusion, only to switch back out to Ace, so Ace is back in, this time not confused. Again, for people starting Nuzlocke, one of the good things to learn is pivoting. It is very beneficial, as Ace hits his Corviknight hard with one final Thunderbolt, taking him out, leaving Hop with only one Pokemon left. As Hop Dynamaxes his Rillaboom, I have Ace use Volt Switch on it to send in Landra to avoid the oncoming Max Quake. Pivoting does in fact save lives. With Landra now out on the field, I have her start firing off Drill Pecks, doing massive damage to the Rillaboom. The Rillaboom only gets one mild hit on Landra in turn. As for the following turn, he just tries to heal to no avail. One more hard-hitting Drill Peck, Rillaboom goes down, knocking Hop out of the Galar Cup. Man, should I feel bad for crushing Hop's dreams or something like that? I mean, I don't know. Shortly afterwards, Hop and I hear that Chairman Rose and Leon might be up to some shady stuff. As we go to investigate, we are intercepted by Chairman Rose's assistant, Oleana. She challenges me to a Pokemon battle to try to protect Rose and Leon's conversation. She leads with a Frostlass, as I lead with Alexander, as Alexander burns the frozen ghoul to a crisp with a hard-hitting flamethrower. She then sends out her Milotic as I send out Olga. However, I accidentally set off Milotic's competitive ability, boosting its stats, with Gyarados' Intimidate ability. Uh-oh. As the Milotic sets up an Aquarine upon Gyarados coming in. I then decide to switch into Ace to try to take it out, as Ace takes a hard-hitting Surf on the way in, barely surviving with only about a quarter HP remaining. Now with Ace in though, I could take out the Milotic with a Choice Specs boosted Thunderbolt, easily one-shotting it, preventing that thing from becoming a much bigger problem. As Oleana sends in her third Pokemon, Salazzle. Not wanting to get Ace killed, I switch him out with Alice, who gets poisoned for her troubles coming in. However, thanks to Alice's leftovers, it does help mitigate some of the poison damage. as Alice also gets hit by a decently damaging Incinerate, hitting back hard with high horsepower, instantly one-shotting the poisonous Salazzle. So far this battle is going pretty good and I have no complaints about it, as Oleana sends in her 4th Pokemon, a Zarina. Naturally I switch into Alexander, whose Fire Flying typing quad-resist all of its Grass-type moves, taking only a light Drop Kick on the way in, as Alexander fires back with a scorching Flamethrower, burning the little plant lady to a crisp, leaving Oleana left with only one Pokemon, her Garbodor. As she prepares to Gigantamax the pile of rubbish into a full-blown landfill, I switch out Alexander for Morgan, not wanting Alexander to get hit with the potential incoming Max Rockfall. As her Pokemon goes becoming a giant trash heap, it fires off the Rockfall that I saw coming, hitting Morgan for not a lot of damage. The following turn, sensing an oncoming G-Max Quake, I switch Morgan into Landra, who avoids the attack for no damage. Good stuff, as this is another example of why pivoting is such a good skill to learn. Man, if only it worked out with Kabu earlier, I could still have Elizabeth still alive. Poor little owl. Anyways, to avoid another oncoming Max Rockfall, I send Morgan back in, who takes the hit very, very nicely, thus ending the Garbodor's final turn of Dynamax. As now it's finally time to go for some payback, as Morgan fires off a hard-hitting Zen Headbutt, one-shotting the Garbodor, ending the battle with Oleana. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. After the battle, Rose and Leon ensure us that nothing funny is going on, as me, Hop, and Leon all leave to go get food. Meanwhile, Rose just menacingly stares out the window. Oh, that's always a good sign. Starting the actual final set of battles, I am challenged by Bede. Bede leads with his Mawile, as I lead with Alexander. Alexander easily dispatches of the Mawile with one hard-hitting Flamethrower. An excellent start. The rest of the battle can be summed up in 2 words: Meteor Mash, as I send Morgan in to begin Meteor Mashing all his Fairy types into oblivion. None of his Pokemon stand a chance, not his Gardevoir, his own Galarian Rapidash, or even his now Gigantamax Hatterene. They all fall to the hard meteor-hitting powers of Morgan's Meteor Mash. Plus the fact that he has a Choice Band helps too. To paraphrase an old quote from a show, Bede's Pokemon are the species, while Morgan is the extinction. Feels good, man, feels good. Heading into the next battle with Nessa, it's pretty much a textbook sweep, as I have Ace armed with a pair of Choice Specs, as Ace outspeeds and one-shots every single Pokemon on our team. This is why I decided to go with Jolteon for this battle to make Nessa practically trivial. I mean, hey, I'll gladly take another easy W under my belt. Heading into Bea, it's more of the same thing, to be honest, as I lead with Ace armed with his Choice Specs and Mighty Thunderbolts, as her first 3 Pokemon are easily dispatched by his hard-hitting Thunderbolts. As she sends in her Grapple-Lock, I decide to send in Trix, who is perfectly immune to all of Grapple-Lock's attacks, giving Trix practically free reign over the punchy little squid to set up as many Calm Minds as his heart desires. After fully setting up with Calm Minds, Trix fires off 2 powerful psychic attacks, easily knocking out her Grapple-Lock and the following G-Max Machamp, securing me another win in the Champion Cup. Ha! It seemed that Trix still had a couple of tricks up his sleeve. Haha! Terrible pun is terrible. Heading into the final Elite Four member, Raihan, he leads with his Torkoal as I lead with Gyarados. I start by using a Rain Dance to get rid of the sun, set up by Torkoal's Drought, as well as to give Olga an attack boost in the rain. As Torkoal's trying to sneak in a sneaky one-turn Solar Beam, only to have that plan foiled. I begin to set up Dragon Dances, as Torkoal hits me with a Yawn. Fortunately, this is part of the plan, as this time I have actually remembered to give... Fortunately, this is actually part of the plan, as I remembered to give Olga the proper berry this time. Not wanting Olga to be put back to sleep, I begin to attack Raihan's Pokemon, knocking them out in one shot, one by one. Once Raihan brings in his ace Duraludon, and Gigantamaxes it again, that kind of brings Olga's sweep to an end, as she does hit hard with an Ice Fang, who takes massive damage from a G-Max depletion in return, forcing me to pull her out of the battle. In her stead, I send in Morgan, who takes a Max Rockfall on the way in, not doing too much damage to him, I try to have Morgan counterattack with a hammer arm, but he misses, as the Duraludon fires back with a max knuckle, doing negligible damage. The following turn, Morgan takes one body press from the Duraludon, but this time lands his hammer arm, knocking the Duraludon out and taking care of Raihan, securing me the semi-final position in the Galar Champion Cup. Right before me and Leon have our final battle, Chairman Rose decides this would be a good time to start the end of the world, as he unleashes the darkest day, trying to harness its energy to save Galar from its energy problems, which will have in 1,000 years. Man, this guy really is nuts, isn't he? I just knew there was something off about him when I saw him in those short shorts. I mean, seriously. The short shorts, man, come on! So I go track down Chairman Rose to put a stop to his evil and, frankly, stupid plan, as he challenges me to a Pokemon battle. He leads with his Escavalier, as I lead with Alexander. As Alexander unleashes a mighty flamethrower, burning the Escavalier to a crisp. Feeling pretty confident as Chairman Rose sends in his Kling Clang, I go for another flamethrower with Alexander, only to get outsped and hit very hard with a wild charge. Alexander survives but takes massive amounts of damage, as he fires off another flamethrower, taking out the Kling Clang, but also with a heavy cost. As the battle goes on, Alexander easily takes out Chairman Rose's Berserker and Ferrothorn with two more hard-hitting flamethrowers, as they all melt before the heat that Alexander is bringing to them. As Chairman Rose brings in his final Pokemon, his Caparaja, I'm thinking that Alexander's flamethrower is probably powerful enough in that it can take it out in one shot. However, the health boost from Gigantamax proves too much, as Alexander cannot take out the Behemoth Elephant, as Alexander goes down to a hard-hitting Max Mindstorm. Poor Alexander. Just like Alexander the Great before him, at the height of his power, he goes down to his own pride. So to finish off the stubborn elephant, I send in Morgan to hit it with one more powerful hammer arm, smashing the elephant that was Alexander's bane and ending the battle with Chairman Rose. Man, so close to the end that I had to lose one more Pokemon. Rough stuff. Things don't get much better as Rose unleashing the Darkest Day also unleashed Eternatus, the Pokemon that causes the Dynamax phenomenon. And yeah, right now there's no way Hop and I can handle this monstrosity. As soon as things seem like that they're about to go very badly, Hop and I get some assistance from two very good boys. The two legendary Pokemon, Zacian and Zamazenta, as they leap into battle with Eternatus, weakening it enough so that I can throw a Pokeball at it, thus capturing it and ending its reign of terror, putting a stop to the Darkest Day and Rose's evil, yet very stupid plan. I mean seriously, 1,000 years, people will figure something out. Humans solve problems, it's what we do. Now that all that nonsense is over, I just want to go over which mods are coming with me for this final battle with Champion Leon, so these mods can get their time in the sun. First up is Olga the Gyarados, with Thrash, Waterfall, Dragon Dance, and Crunch. Following her is Trix the Chandelure, with Shadow Ball, Calm Mind, Overheat, and Minimize. After Trix is Mr. Storm Dance himself, Cletus the Pinsir, with X-Scissor, Strength, Swords Dance, and Storm Throw. After Cletus is Alex the Aggron, with Protect, High Horsepower, Stone Edge, and Iron Head. After Alice is Morgan the Metagross, with Flash Cannon, Zen Headbutt, Meteor Mash, and Hammer Arm. And last but certainly not least is Ace the Jolteon, with Thunderbolt, Volt Swish, Protect, and Shadow Ball. May these 6 Pokemon bring me luck in the battle ahead. It all comes down to this, the final battle with Leon. As Leon dramatically throws off his cape in a heroic fashion, he sends out his Aegislash as I lead with Olga, having our battle officially begin. As things begin, I decide to go for a Dragon Dance with Olga, as Leon just goes for a King Shield, causing no harm to Olga. My initial plan for this battle is pretty simple. It is to set up some Dragon Dances with Olga, and then knock out the Aegislash with a Crunch, following it up with Thrash, as its high base damage plus Olga's boost stats should do some very good damage. As the Aegislash fires off a hard-hitting Shadow Ball, that also gets the special defense drop on Olga. Well, that's not good. I then try to counter the Aegislash with a Crunch, only to be blocked by its King Shield, which also lowers my attack stat. Well, that's double not good. The next turn I decide to go for another Dragon Dance to regain my lost attack, as Olga gets hit by another hard Shadow Ball, leaving her only on 9 HP, while also lowering her special defense even further. This is triple not good. Having no other choice, I decide to enact the plan and go after the Aegislash, it fortunately not using King Shield, and taking it down with one hard-hitting Crunch. 1 down, 5 to go. As Leon sends in his second Pokemon, Dragapult, Fortunately, Olga did not lose any of her speed buffs, meaning that she could easily outspeed the Dragapult in one shot before it could do any harm to her. 2 down, 4 to go. A bit of a sloppy start, but I'm glad things are getting back on track. As Leon sends out his third Pokemon, Mr. Rhyme. Just like the other two though, Mr. Rhyme just goes down to one hard-hitting crunch. Huh, this plan is actually working better than I thought it would. Anyways, back to the battle, as Leon sends out his fourth Pokemon, Haxorus. And to this point, I decided to go for the actual plan and use Thrash, which absolutely demolishes his Haxorus at the cost of Olga being stuck in Thrash. Hopefully she breaks out of it in only 2 turns and not 3, meaning that, well, whichever Pokemon is out next is basically dead to rights, meaning his last Charizard will be vulnerable to a waterfall, as I have already given Olga a berry to snap her out of the confusion that getting out of Thrash causes, as Olga has just finished obliterating Leon's Inteleon, as now Leon sends in his ace, Charizard. However, as I'm not able to have Olga do anything else, as Leon Gigantamaxes his Charizard, this lets me know that Olga is still stuck in Thrash, which is super not good, as Olga goes for a Thrash doing a great amount of damage, but not enough to take out the behemoth, as she heals off her confusion with her berry. Olga's last remaining HP is smashed to bits by Charizard's G-Max Rockfall. Did good, Olga. You did real good. Rest easy now. However, Olga's sacrifice is not in vain, as this allows me to bring in Ace very safely and hit this giant Knot Dragon with a one hard-hitting Thunderbolt, taking him down, defeating Leon, and winning me the run. Honestly, that plan with Olga worked way better than I thought it would. In any case, this victory makes me the new champion of the Galar region. And with that, that brings this Nuzlocke run to a close, and my first ever win on a Nuzlocke run too. I just wanted to say thank you all for staying around and watching the entire video. This is my first time ever doing something like this, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more content like this, let me know in the comments below. Leave a like, subscribe if you want any more stuff, because obviously there's going to be more Pokemon here, but I was also thinking maybe do some stuff like Fallout, or Civ, or Paradox games, or whatever other kind of games I feel like. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave them down below, and again, thank you for sticking around. I hope you have a nice rest to your afternoon, evening, or whatever time of day it is where you're currently at. Thank you very much, and goodbye.